this debt, this destruction.
Global news impacts us.
We have to change the way we live. This is why we need independent media.
Cheers and salutations. Welcome one and all to another episode of Hard Lens Media. My name is Kit Cabello. Shout out to all of our viewing audience members here in the live stream show, as well as to our audience members on CAN TV. And as we all know, as 2024 is rearing its ugly head, and you know what that means, elections, it's always important for us to interview candidates and people who are trying to fight for a better future. And for this point, this interview is going to be very interesting because we have an individual who is running for an office in South Carolina, a congressional office. His name is, and I want to make sure it's proper, Gregg Marcel Dixon. He is joining us first time here on the show. So again, it's only fair to introduce him. Gregg Marcel Dixon, thank you so much for being on Hard Lens Media. Just to be clear, we did speak before the show, so I will be addressing you as Marcel going forward. So for our viewing audience members and people who are watching us live right now and on CAN TV, can you introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about yourself and the district you are running currently for in South Carolina and who the current incumbent is?
Well, thank you for having me. My name, as you already introduced, is Gregg Marcel Dixon. I am a teacher by profession of nearly 20 years. I live in South Carolina, and I'm running for South Carolina's 6th U.S. Congressional District, which is the seat that is currently held by James Clyburn.
Mm-hmm. James Clyburn, a name we all know. So currently, of course, many people will say, well, why are you running against James Clyburn? What has aren't our current politicians enough? Shouldn't we trust the names we know and allow these dynastic politicians or people in positions of power to remain in office?
Well, James Clyburn would say yes. Matter of fact, when he steps down, whenever that will be, he plans to have his daughter run or one of his surrogates like Jamie Harrison, who ran against Lindsey Graham. And when I asked Jamie Harrison, okay, what are your plans for the Black community? He said, well, I'm Black, and that's enough. So that's who Clyburn is planning. He wants his handpicked people to run. But no, I'm running against James Clyburn because I did research, and I found out that his district is somewhere between 49 and 60% Black, and he has been in office for 30 years, going on 31 now, and we are the 6th poorest district in the United States of America. That's out of 435 districts. We are number 6, almost the poorest place to live in the United States of America. And yet I heard everyone calling him the kingmaker. And like I've always said, if he's going to be called the kingmaker, then the people in his district should be living like royalty. And that has not been the case.
I guess for our viewing audience members, because again, you know, a lot of us are from all over the country. You know, Hard Lens Media is here in Chicago. Can you please give us a rundown about the current economic situation in the district that's represented by James Clyburn? You said before that it's the poorest district, but I think 6th poorest district. Thank you for the correction. But what is the overall landscape? What has happened? Has there been any kind of attempt for any kind of economic recovery? I mean, we hear, according to corporate media, that things are good, inflation is down supposedly, and that the Biden-Harris administration are again jobs. People are going to work, even though everyone's ignoring the fact that there's a lot of job layoffs, not only in big tech but in blue-collar jobs as well. Can you enlighten us further about the socioeconomic problems in this district?
So one, the district is very rural. So that right there already brings a host of issues that are usually typical to rural areas. But it's a majority Black district. And one issue we have is a system called heirs property. For those who don't know, a quick breakdown is heirs property is when you own land, but you own a share of it. There's no one owner because whoever was the owner didn't leave a will. Now, in the cases of Black Americans, that was because we either couldn't afford a lawyer, we did not trust white lawyers would not work with us, or they scammed us, or there were not many Black lawyers around, or we couldn't read. So that's all dealing with the history of legacy of anti-Black American racism. So as a result, with heirs property, you have to pay these high taxes because we have a lot of coastal land here in South Carolina that Black people still own, but you can't get any money from it. So you you have billions of dollars in wealth that we should have access to, but we don't. So a lot of black families lose their land because of taxes, or they just end up selling it because they don't have the money to pay the taxes. They got to get something from it. So when you lose land, you just don't lose soil and dirt. You lose wealth as well. Number two, this district is home to South Carolina's Corridor of Shame. For those of you who don't know about that, South Carolina's Corridor of Shame refers to a network of majority black rural districts that have schools where sometimes as many as 80 to 90% of the kids are not reading on or above grade level. They're not doing math on above grade level. And the facilities in which they are housed are sometimes buildings that were built in the 1920s, 30s, and 40s. Number three, this district has a high poverty level, as we've already talked about, but I'm going to give you some context with that.
Okay, let's hear it.
The average income in this district is around $48,000. White Americans is a little higher, it's around $56,000. That's still lower than the average nationwide, which is $64,000. For Black Americans, the average income is $28,000. This district lacks clean water in many areas. Charleston was determined to be the city with the most toxic quality of water in the United States of America, one of the highest. Denmark, South Carolina, a majority black town, like 60 to 70% black, hasn't had clean water now in over 12 to 13 years. They stopped the contaminants that were in the water, but the pipes were never changed. So the people there still don't have access to clean water.
All right, if I may interject here, we here at Heartlands Media have talked about the fact that Flint, Michigan hasn't had clean drinking water since the information was revealed about the lead in its system. Same thing here in the city of Chicago, as there's lead in our drinking water, and Heartlands Media has done not one but two documentaries called Toxic Tour, in which we cover the industrial facilities dumping toxic waste into Lake Michigan and into the air as well. So when you say toxic material, contaminants in the pipes, can you elaborate a little bit more on what said material is? Are the pipes lead pipes, or is there other contaminants that are impacting the people's drinking water? Could you elaborate a little bit more on that, please?
Well, in the case of Charleston, it's creosote, for one, that came from factories where they used to use it to refine wood. And the other case of Charleston is because y'all know the port of Charleston is the 9th busiest port in the United States of America. And because of all the exhausts from the ships and the trucks that are bringing materials to and from the ports, that has also been shown to have a detrimental effect on the tap water. Now, Charleston doesn't have the only ports in the world, but apparently precautions have not been taken to protect the drinking water of the people there. And that is rooted in redlining because, you know, there's ports throughout America, but Charleston, remember, was once 90% black. So obviously there was not a lot of protection being considered for the people in that area. And where the ports are located, North Charleston, is still like 50% black. In the case of Denmark, I don't recall what the chemicals were, but it was untested chemicals that will be put in the drinking water there. That ceased, but the pipes that are still contaminated by those materials are still there themselves. But at this moment, I'm not going to just mix them off the top of my head because I don't remember the exact name of the contaminants, even though I have researched this issue thoroughly.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Now, I do want to continue on and talk about what some of the policies that you'll be running on. But there's two things I wish to bring up. And I did speak to you about this before we went live, and I asked your permission if we could play these two videos. But before I do play these two videos, I want our viewing audience to be aware of this, that in 2024, South Carolina, the state that you are in, Marcel, is going to be the first state in the 2024 presidential primary, which is something historic. I don't think we've ever seen this since Iowa has always been number one. So South Carolina is going to be the number one primary state. And in this said state, a potential challenger to Biden, who's running a Democratic primary, did a town hall. Her name is Marian Williamson. And in this video I'm about to play that you posted on social media that has gone pretty much viral, and we did speak about it, you attended this town hall with Marianne Williamson. And I'm going to play two videos. And again, I want to get your thoughts on this. So first, let's play the video in its full entirety to where you are speaking with Marianne Williamson about reparations. I want everyone to notice how close she is to Marcel until, well, she decides to start backing away and putting most of her staff members around Marcel. But we'll talk a little bit about that later. So let's go ahead and play this video.
So I concur with a lot of things that you said. One, I ran for office, and I'm running yet again against the king maker, James Clyburn. But my attitude, if you're the king maker, then your district should be living like royalty, and they're not. So I know exactly how they try to shame you, exclude you, and slander your name. And my thing is this: we as Americans need to go back home. Okay, when did we start worrying? Well, see, I'm a Black American Gullah Geechee. We've always had to stand up and fight for everything. And I know you was talking about how things used to be. Well, I was born. My great grandparents are still alive. My great grandparents were all still alive except one. And they told me the good old days for y'all weren't good old days for them. So they're used to having to fight and be slandered and be excluded and be denigrated. I want to thank you for being, and I'm going to say this because they like to say man enough. I'm going to thank you, a woman, for being man enough to do not what's popular, not what's easy,
Yes.
but what's right.
Yes.
And you're running on a reparations platform. And that's the right thing to do. Now, I do want to give you some pointers if you're open to it about your reparations plan, because I face all kinds of backlash, which I gladly accept. I'm here for it. My ancestors who were fighting in these rice marshes and swamps didn't back down to this backlash. I will be an insult to my great grandmother who died at 101 if I back down because of people saying mean things to me. One, reparations comes from the federal government. It does not come from your tax dollars. America pays reparations every single day. They're paying it to Ukrainians right now. They're paying it when they take care of people in the country illegally and go up to the truth. They paid it to the Japanese Americans who were interned. Even though my great grandfather helped to save the Jews from the Nazis, he came back to America and he was locked out of the GI Bill, which gave trillions of dollars to many white veterans that they say built the middle class. And yet those same Jews right now are getting reparations. People in
Wait, I have to stop you. I am too. What Jews right now are getting?
All right, so I will pull up the next video, but Marcel, I do want to just acknowledge this, because when we play the next video, if people want to notice it, especially if they want to rewind it, it's easy to point out that Marian Williamson was first very close by you, and then she had a huge space away from you. Essentially, did that happen right away as soon as the camera was like no longer focused on her when you were bringing this up? And second of all, before we play the second video, could you elaborate a little bit more on the reparations? Because in regards towards what's going to be happening later in the second video I'm going to play, and I played all four of the videos in the previous other segment that we covered yesterday, you were being shouted down and talked down to by Marian Williamson. Could you elaborate before we see her obviously start yelling at you and start trying to dismiss your concerns and criticism towards her?
So the point I was trying to make before she rudely interjected, I was making that reparations is not a new concept. And I really get sick and tired of a lot of people playing dumb. Really, they're just being anti-Black Americans, just being racist, trying to act like when Black Americans say, well, oh, reparations, people pretend like that is some new concept. When this country, every single day, and other countries are paying reparations, direct cash payments to groups that have been wronged by the government. And the government is responsible to repair the damage they've done to those groups. And before anyone tries to talk about, well, the people who were enslaved aren't here anymore, first of all, it is not my fault that this country didn't pay my ancestors when they should have. You don't get to tell me to get over the debt that this country never paid because this country failed to do right by my ancestors. They still owe the debt. They owe it to us. Second of all, and very most importantly, as I was trying to bring up, this country pays reparations not just to the people who were wrong, but a lot of times to their children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren. I was going to talk about Guam, how Guam just got reparations in 2016, and that was as a result of something that happened during World War II. A lot of those people are deceased now, but their surviving spouses, if they were still alive, their children, or in some cases their grandchildren, received the money. That's what I was trying to say. In the case where I brought up the Holocaust survivors, the Jews, I was talking about the disgusting irony that my great-grandfather, who is very much still alive, he's almost 100 years old, but he's in pretty good health. He fought in World War II to help stop Hitler, and he lived to see the Jewish Claims Conference and the Jewish Congress help get the Holocaust survivors reparations, and their heirs today are even getting reparations in many respects. Yet he has seen his children, my dear grandmother who's deceased, his grandchildren, his great-grandchildren, my generation, and his great-great-grandchildren now, he has seen us not get what we are owed. And I was going to say, it can't be a one standard of justice for one group, but then when it comes to Black America, there's a whole other standard which means no justice. That's the point I was trying to make.
All right, now I'm going to play the second video, and thank you for explaining this. I want to play the second video. I wanted to focus on this too long because I want to give you the final word on this, because I just have a couple of questions after I get done playing this video, and then we'll focus back onto your campaign. But I think it's very important that we hear your side and perspective because, again, it's just interesting to see just how this overall plays out, because in the way that Marianne Williamson was presenting herself as a potential challenger to Biden, if Biden does run, or if it's going to be an open field, this doesn't look like a good look. And if you're going to be easily enraged, this is politics 101, and talking down to one constituent, one potential voter, asking a question, think about what you're going to face off against the campaign trail. The world is just, America is just more than just South Carolina. There's a lot of states, 50 states in together that make up the United States. And you're going to be getting questions from a lot of people, and you got to have a little bit more composure.
Well, may I say something really quick?
Go ahead.
I was there actually as a potential supporter. You saw I start off commending her. So if you can't even deal with a supporter bringing up facts, you're not going to be able to deal with resistance. And number two, Joe Crow Biden, as I call it, because I can't stand that thing. It is just like Marianne. They both don't like Black Americans. They both think we ought to just accept their little fake white liberal progressivism friendship and shut up. They both got another thing coming with me now.
All right. I guess the old phrase of, well, if they could just tweet something you like to hear and you could just retweet it. At least that's what we see from these neoliberal Democrats. They like to post out tweets. What would it mean to you if we did X, Y, and Z? Well, of course it would mean something to all of us because, it means you get something done, but they only could tweet about it. They only talk about it because politicians just like to tweet and talk. So let's go ahead and play this next video.
What Jews right now are getting reparations?
The Jews who are Holocaust
survivors.
The Jews who are Holocaust survivors.
But they're not getting reparations from the American government.
No, they're not. What the American government did in 2014 agreed to facilitate a $12 million payback to Holocaust survivors.
That had nothing to do with the U.S. government giving
No,
money
the
to
U.S.
the
government
Jews.
did facilitate that payback.
That facilitation is with an administrative Germany.
Okay.
Germany paid reparations.
Well,
to
so
the
my
Jewish
point is, though,
organization.
but
The
my
United
point,
States did not pay
but
reparations.
the United States government facilitated, and the point still exists. Me, a descendant of American slaves, haven't seen a penny yet. At the end of slavery, and I know you probably know these numbers, $42 to $84 trillion was the value of those of us who were enslaved. And I like the fact that you're running on reparations, but you have $1 trillion as the amount, and that is insultingly low. And I understand that you may have to make it palatable because to the American public, but if we want to do what's right, we got to do what's right. And the amount that we are owed is at $70 trillion minimum. If you just do $1 trillion, they said in the 20th century, Black Americans lost $400 billion in just land theft alone. That doesn't go to Jim Crow. That doesn't go to being left on the Homestead Act that gave white Americans $10 trillion and 300 acres. So I love the fact that we're running a reparations plan, but your plan is going to have to get those numbers right. It's got to be lineage based, and the money needs to go directly to us. Because when the Japanese Americans got their money, it didn't go to a council, it went straight to them. Those Holocaust survivors, that money goes straight to them. That's right. We deserve to have even more so.
Yeah, so let me say a couple of things. First of all, I honor how you stand up for your ancestors, and I stand up for mine. The United States has not paid $1 of reparations to Jews for the Holocaust. That is number one. And by the way, as far as some of the things you said about Roosevelt, which was true about his treatment of Black people, he didn't do well by the Jews during the 2 years when Hitler said they could still leave. So I will not stand here while anti-Semitic tropes are repeated. That's
not anti-Semitic. That's the truth.
That's the truth.
That's the truth.
Now we played the Apologies. Now, we did play the rest of the videos on an earlier segment yesterday. And obviously, from what I want to point out, and Marcel, I want you just to just answer these 3 questions. Obviously, Marian Williamson was close by you, then started moving away. I want to talk about in regards to how her team was starting to surround you, and then what happened after that. Did anyone speak to you after this town hall? Number 2, look, she gave an accusation saying that you were saying some anti-Semitic remarks. I want you to comment on that. And then number 3, overall, with the if you did stay, if you were not escorted out, what was the overall feel of the rest of that town hall? Because the way Marian Williamson began yelling, because in the 3rd video, there's a video of her then aggressively yelling and walking towards you, and then walking right back. Can you just elaborate on just what I've just been asking you? And I'll give the floor to you.
Well, yeah, she walked back because she must have realized I am not the record it and cry about it on Twitter type. So she made the right decision there. That's all I'm going to say. But okay, so 1, yeah, that anti-Semitic accusation, that ain't going to work with me. There was not a damn thing anti-Semitic that I said. I stated facts. And I know you said you already played the video. So that means your viewers already saw the part where I go on my phone and actually read the articles that came out about the Obama administration earmarking $12 million to help Holocaust survivors and their heirs who are living below the poverty line. I then sent, you can't hear this part, her team did come around me. By the way, let me be very clear. She has a wonderful, wonderful, lovely team. It was a black guy, Marcarius, the very nice looking black woman that was standing by me, Shatera, and there was 2 white women. They were all lovely, all incredible, all extremely kind. I want to really acknowledge that her team's incredibly kind. They were trying to stop her from making a fool of herself. So her campaign manager said, you know what? You're right. You mean you said it, you proved it. Can you send that to me so I can show it to her? And I sent that to him, and I sent where France, a railroad company in France, put aside $60 billion to pay to Holocaust survivors, and the United States of America, the State Department, facilitated that by allowing either Holocaust survivors, or in the case that they were dead, their spouses or their children or even their grandchildren, direct descendants, to sign up to get the money. Those are facts. So she thought that anti-Semitic accusation was going to shame me and put me on the defense. She had another thing coming. I am not the type they're going to shame when I am speaking the truth. That's number 1. Now, after that, there's another part. There's another video. There's another video, by the way, I'm going to release, of the lady that was recording me. She asked a question about, why do you want our money to go to these black leaders so they can pocket it? I mean, look at what some of these preachers in the black church do. They take it and they're living lavish while their black congregants are suffering in poverty. So she asks Marianne a question, and Marianne, again, either lies or she doesn't know what she's talking about. She says, why does our money have to go directly to these groups, not directly to us? And she was like, well, the Japanese Americans, it went directly to them. That is, it went to those who were still alive. But with slavery, and by the way, reparations is more than just slavery, but in regards to slavery, those people are dead. But I called out in that video too, and I'm going to put that on Twitter some other day. I said to her, that's not true. When the Japanese got reparations, some of them were dead, and it went to either their spouses, their children, or another direct descendant. After it was all said and done, I had lovely conversations with her team and with people there. It was an all-white crowd. The only other black person was the lady recording me. And it was older whites mainly too. A lot of them came to me and told me that they found out stuff about American history that they didn't know. Like one white lady told me that her family owned a farm, and they owned that farm because of the Homestead Act, where America was pretty much giving land away to European immigrants, white Americans. Some were even former Confederates. And she didn't go into detail about which group her family fell into, but they owned the farm. And she was like, her mother was a forward-thinking woman. Her mother got a lot of backlash. Her mother used to allow the black children to play with her children. She was in South Carolina, which was very black at the time, still black now. Her mother was also a flight attendant. So her mother was a non-conformist. She told me she appreciated me not conforming to what society may say is comfortable or not comfortable. Another white woman came to me and shook my hand and thanked me. She said, let me tell you something. I know, you said you're running for office. She asked me for a flyer. She said, anyone who stands up for their people, you can trust will stand up for other people too. Because you don't stand up for your own people, you ain't going to stand up for other people. It went very well. The only person who was rude, disrespectful, and either lying or flat out ignorant was Marianne Williamson. And I'm glad I'm able to show it to everybody.
And obviously, there's 2 other videos. I don't want to focus the interview too much on it, so I'll just give the floor to you if you are comfortable with it. There's 2 other videos that we did play. We did comment on it, and obviously, to our Can TV audience, they'll have to check out our YouTube page. Do you want us to pull up this other video, or do you want to focus on the rest of your campaign? I want to give that to you as a guest.
It is, I can do either one. I'll let you decide, and I'll go whatever direction you decide to go.
I think you addressed everything in regards towards your conversation with Marian Williamson. So for everyone who wants to see all 4 videos, I think it's only fair then. I want to pull up your Twitter account here as well, just so that everyone can see it. All 4 videos are there because I would like to focus on the rest of your campaign. But this is Marcel for Congress. Again, tweet at Marcel for Congress. So there it is, the @ right there. If you wish to see these full videos where he went to confront Marian Williamson and speak with him, because we played the 2 videos and then there's 2 other final videos as well. As someone who's been covering politics since 2017 for Hardlands Media, we've covered midterm as well as the 2018 presidential election cycle, 2018 midterm, 2022 midterm. Politics 101 is, if you're running a town hall, you don't start insulting or being aggressive towards constituents or potential supporters. You're supposed to be more open-minded to it. I'm glad that you were not escorted out. I was wondering if that was going to happen. Did Marianne Williamson have any other? I just want to focus on this, and I just wanted to ask these 2 questions. Number 1, did Marianne Williamson speak to you after the town hall? Did she just leave right away? And then number 2, if you have any words to say to Marianne Williamson now, what are they?
So after the town hall, that very attractive Black woman that was standing by me, who was on her team, she said, you know what? She thanked me for speaking. She said, everything you said were facts. She said, I think you and Marianne need to have a conversation. Because I was talking to, like I said, mainly the older white attendees of the crowd. You know what's strange, Kit? Really quick, a side note. Mm-hmm. People always think, oh, the young whites are more progressive. None of them came to me. The older whites, though, the ones that older Southern whites, the ones that people say are so anti-Black and all the will be the biggest enemies of reparations, they all came to me to speak to me, the woman mainly. Anyway, so her team asked me to go and speak with her. So I sat and waited at least a good 10 to 15 minutes to speak with her. Before I could speak, she said, what's your name? I said, Marcel. I said, and what is yours? And she didn't answer. She said, leave the Jews out your mouth and we can have a conversation. Now, you don't talk. I said, Jew. Because I only said it because who the hell you think you talking to? I'm not your son. That's just why I said to her. So her team came and kind of got in between us. I said, let me tell you one thing. And I said this loud and everybody got quiet. I said, the days of the Democrats being able to disrespect Black Americans and yet y'all survive off of our vote, those days are over with me. I said, so you will talk to me with respect and you will treat me with respect and you will honor my people, not just with lip service, but with actual policies. And she was like, well, right back at you. And I was about to go in and then the team and then the lady I was with got between us.
All right. And if you had to say anything right now to Marianne Williamson, if she was right here in the room, what would you like to say to her?
You owe me a public apology, but you have no integrity, so you won't do it because you accused me of being a liar, first and foremost, and I proved to you, I sent it to your wonderful South Carolina State Director that what I said was true. Then you tried to call me anti-Semitic to try to deflect from the fact that you're running on a reparations plan, but apparently it is just a form of pandering for you, because if you really want to do a true reparations plan, you would have at least taken my feedback. You didn't have to do it. You could take it or leave it, but you should have at least listened. So you owe me a public apology, but you seem to be like so many white liberals. You think you are better than the white conservatives y'all tell us to hate because you don't call us the N-word, probably, or because you have hugged a Black person before. You owe me a public apology, but I'm not expecting it, and really, I don't need it. Improve and with your actions is the best way to apologize to me.
Fantastic. All right. And I think it's only fair now that we should move on to the rest of what your campaign is talking about. So I want to pull this up. It's called A Better Deal for Black America. So for our viewing audience, is that something that you're running on? We'll be able to pull up your campaign website here. I want to pull it up here. Can you first address that one? What is that? And how are you bringing about it, or addressing it to apologies for that, potential supporters, constituents in regards to that? Can you elaborate?
So I have gone to MAGA. Well, they're not MAGA rallies, but they're election integrity events. But the crowd is usually 98% white and self-identified MAGA. And I've gotten standing ovations from them, telling them I'm for reparations, telling them that this nation owes them, telling them that Black Americans are owed. And here's how I do it. I tell them that don't think if this country can do the barbarity, the savage things, the unforgivable things it's done to Black Americans, and it never repairs it, it never pays a penny, don't think they won't one day come for you. As an American, your rights are only as safe and secure as my rights. Fairness and justice for you is only as guaranteed as it is for me. So my better deal for Black America is really acknowledging that Black Americans, they never had a good deal from this country. But when Roosevelt did his New Deal Act, he excluded 98% of Black Americans from it. I know because my great-grandmother, who lived to be 101 and died in 2015, she told me how she was excluded from all the things that she was excited to hear that Roosevelt was going to do. So I was like, it's time for this country to do a good deal by Black Americans. So my better deal for Black Americans includes reparations, direct monetary payments. It includes bringing back the Freedmen's Bureau. I'm not a fan of big government. So the Freedmen's Bureau, with my plan, will run almost similar to the Native American tribal governments. It will be separate from the government. They will just give us a budget like they do for Native American tribal governments. And we, Black Americans, will be able to be responsive to our own needs. We'll be able to bring back our Black Wall Streets where we had blocks upon blocks of Black businesses. We'll be able to build our own schools. We'll be able to have our own hospitals where our Black women aren't dying more than women in Syria just for giving birth to a child like they are doing now in America, the richest country in the world. We'll be able to police our own communities. So that is my plan. At the end of the Civil War, when General Sherman met with 20 Black clergymen, he said to them, what can the country do to repair the wrongs done to the Negro? They said to him, they didn't say, let's go back to Africa, because we aren't from Africa. That may be our roots a long time ago, but we are Americans. They didn't say to him, well, give us big government programs to take care of us. They said, give us the land we've cultivated and leave us the hell alone. That's the inspiration for my better deal for Black America plan. Give us what we are owed and give us our rights and equity and let Black Americans take care of ourselves, because history has shown ain't no one's ever taken good care of us besides us.
Now, real quick, because I want to focus on the rest of your policy issues, but again, this isn't my perspective, but I'm going to be repeating something that I have seen to my disgust from liberals, vote blue no matter who, people like AOC, the Squad, Democrats in general. You're speaking to white MAGA Republicans about this, and you're talking to them. Now, at least according to the rules or the people who dictate things on social media, be it corporate media, the neoliberal left, the fraud squad, people like AOC, or social justice warriors with blue check marks on Twitter, you're not supposed to talk to MAGA Republicans. They're the bad guy. They're the villain. What kind of common ground can you find with white MAGA Republicans? Why are you speaking to them? How dare you? At least that's what you would see from people who would hear this kind of news. Can you elaborate? Why did you speak to them? What's the purpose of speaking to them? At least according to everything that I've been told by social media and anyone who's a authoritative person in the Democratic establishment, you're not supposed to do that. That's a big no-no. Why did you do that?
If I'm running for office and I'm going to be representing the people, I have a responsibility to talk to the people, whether they agree with me or not. Now, am I saying that they agree with everything I say? No. But one of the reasons why I talk to these white self-identified MAGA people is, one, I'm in South Carolina, so it's kind of hard to avoid them. And two, I don't need to avoid them. Reparations will only go to Black Americans who are descendants of American slaves. But one of my favorite people from history, Robert Smalls, who was one of the first elected Black people in Congress, Robert Smalls said in the 1860s to a white Congress, he said, let me tell you something. The Negro is here to stay. And it is to the white man's benefit that the Negro gets all the things he are due. I tell them the same thing. Like I started off saying, what is done to me, don't think it won't happen to you. So if it's justice for all, but not justice for, if it's justice for some, and if it's not justice for one, that's the same as not being justice for none. Another reason why I speak to them is because even though I cringe at the word ally, allies are a good thing. Allies are helpful. And when I go to these events, it's usually like 300, maybe 200, 400 people there. Do all of them run up to me and give me hugs and shake my hand? No. But I get at least a good 30, 40 who do. Some of them ask me to go on Facebook and share the things that I've shared with them. And some of them have said, I was looking up everything you said to prove you wrong, and they found that everything I said was right. And Kit, may I address something real quick? Because I know how some white people think. To be very honest, I bet some are in your comments right now saying that I'm pushing for segregation. You know what? I find that quite hypocritical. The hoods are filled with nothing but Black people. The slums are filled with nothing but Black people. The plantations were filled with nothing but Black people. Okay? To the bottom of society, economically, land ownership, home ownership, nothing but Black people. No one has a problem when the bad is all Black, but the moment, but people want to have it both ways. The moment we talk about Black people doing good things for ourselves and building our own communities, people want to say, oh, you want segregation, but they have no problem when Black people are segregated in the hood, segregated in failing schools. So if anyone in your comments saying that, you are a hypocrite, you're anti-Black American, let's just call a spade and admit it. I like honesty.
All right, fair enough. Now, I do want to bring up another thing, too. You're talking about better education. Can you elaborate more on that? Because currently the education system here in the United States is abysmal. College is pretty much a dream. And if you get stuck in the college industrial complex, as I like to call it, you are riddled with debt. Can you elaborate? What does that mean?
So the problem with public education in America is that the way it's funded. It's funded literally by your zip code. So if you are born, I'm in a town called Ridgeland, South Carolina. It's a very poor place in South Carolina. But right across from me is a town called Bluffton, South Carolina. You've probably heard of Hilton Head Island, South Carolina. It's a resort island. Bluffton, South Carolina is the richest town in South Carolina. A kid who is born and lives in Bluffton, South Carolina, they're going to have more educational programs. But it's not just about programs, it's about networking. They're going to go to school with kids whose parents are who have more educated background, who have more connections. Whereas with me, when I went to school, we struggled to find a math teacher, a foreign language teacher. I remember my senior year, they had to get us in the gym to teach us health classes so we can get our health credits required to get a diploma. We struggled to get the basics, and that's a relic of segregation and Jim Crow. But the reason that it continues because funding is based on property taxes. But if you're in a poor area, and like in my district, most Black Americans live on heirs property, which means that there's no one owner. It's family shared property. The property taxes are going to be very low. That's not the way it should be. So I recommend forming a commission that will establish a standard of education where kids can get the technology, kids can get up-to-date books, kids can be able to get teachers that will be well paid, guidance counselors, and at least the basics when it comes to extracurriculum, PE, art, music. And each county will have to give what they can, but I want the federal government that invests a lot of money in war and defense contractors. The federal government should definitely be investing in public education. They will then fill in the difference so that every single kid can attend a public school that is well funded. Number two, I haven't spoken on this on my website, and I know there's a lot of controversy in South Carolina right now about should these funding per pupil follow the school or the child. I'm an advocate for following the child. Competition brings out the best in all of us. So if you want that kid to stay in that public school, then show that parent you're worthy of having that kid. If not, then that kid should be able to go to another school, and that school should have to live up to the expectations of educating that child. And if the parent decides to homeschool that kid, then the parent will be held accountable for showing that they are able to adequately educate that child. It's not going to be free money for some private school scam. It's going to have to be proven that you are adequately educating that child.
Fantastic. All right. Now, I want to ask you a two-part question. Now, this just came up from a very good friend of our show, Roger Meadows. He's introduced us about citizen ballot initiatives. So, number one, I want to get your thoughts. Are you familiar about citizen ballot initiatives? What are your thoughts on them? And then number two, he did want me to ask you this about the Freedmen Bureau Bank. Freedmen Bureau Bank that was designed specifically for Black Union soldier veterans. Can you elaborate more on that? So let's just ask that question right there.
I am not familiar with citizen initiative ballots. Citizen ballot initiatives. You see, unlike Marianne, if I don't know something, I have no shame in saying, I don't know about that. I'll look it up. Number two, Freedmen's Bank. I have found several. I found my great-great-grandmother, Diana Simmons, who had an account with the Freedmen's Bank. I have found my great-great-great-grand-uncle, Ben Simmons, who had an account with the Freedmen's Bank. The first Freedmen's Bank was right here in South Carolina, 15 minutes from me in Beaufort, South Carolina. So the Freedmen's Bank was actually something that was started outside of the government, even though it was supposed to be managed to some extent by the government, and the government ended up sabotaging it. But that was a kind of a private initiative with some public support from the government. I am a fan of bringing back the Freedmen's Bank, but this time there's going to be accountability. You see, the Freedmen's Bureau, again, is going to be ran like Black America's own little government, the same way these Native American tribes have their own tribal government, but there will be accountability written into the bylaws and into the procedures that govern the Freedmen's Bureau. Because I'm going to be very honest with you, Kit. The same way I can't automatically trust a white politician, the mistake a lot of Black Americans have made is automatically trusting a Black politician. So I am not going to just go off of you are a Black face and you're going to be good for Black people. There's plenty of Black faces, cough Clyburn, who have been atrocious for Black people.
I could speak for experience for us, our own Mayor Lori Lightfoot from Chicago. I don't want to go too much on it because then I'll go on a tirade. Let's just say she was bad for everybody in Chicago, and Chicago is a hyper segregated city. But again, that is a story for another day, and I don't want to take up too much of your time. But in regards to citizen ballot initiatives, I can actually send you a link about it. I think it's a fantastic political weapon that regular voters can use to, well, circumvent around the swamp that is known as Washington, D.C. If you live in Illinois is a ballot initiative state, so for our viewing audience in CAN TV, yes, we are a ballot initiative state. So it's something that only 23 states have that privilege of using, and I wish that all the states had that. So if it's something that interests you, I'll send you that link so that way you're more familiar with it. And I think South Carolina is a state that does not have ballot initiatives, and I think it would benefit from it. But that's just my opinion. But
now, if I'm not mistaken, Kit, there in South Carolina on the county level, you can put certain things you would like to see done in a community with like tax dollars on the ballot, and people can vote for it. Because just now in my county, they had something on the ballot about a trust fund or something like that for funding projects with schools. I voted for it. People voted against it, and I kind of knew it would because there's already a lot of mismanagement with public school money. I don't know if that is something that will qualify as a ballot initiative. If so, then it's done in South Carolina on the county level.
It was probably done on a county level. There's various different ways. There's amendment, statute, and veto referendum, statute and veto referendum, amendment, and then veto referendum. And according to this map right here, South Carolina has none of those, so it's probably only for a county level or for your own district area. But again, it's something we could talk about later, and I think even you would find it interesting if you have the time to check it out. So there you go. So we'll move on to our final segment, or final question, and this is something that you mentioned earlier. Okay, James Clyburn, he represents your district. All right. And supposedly, it should be a royal district where everyone's living on cloud nine. But you mentioned about better transportation, and the 6th congressional district, according to your campaign, so South Carolina, 97% is rural, only 3% is urban. So that means to somebody like me, I'm spoiled with the fact Chicago, we have buses, we have trains, we have a lot of options here, specifically with public transportation. Do I think it's on par with what I've seen in Japan? No, but it's far better. How bad is the rural situation and transportation situation for workers in your district?
It's horrendous. And here's one reason: because it's a rural area, you already know what that means. A lot of people have to commute. We have to commute for everything. We have to commute to work. Some people, like those, my brothers and sisters who live in Allendale, South Carolina, they have to commute to Hilton Head Island sometimes to work at the hotels, and then they have to commute back to Allendale. That's a 4-hour trip, and they do that every single day. They have a bus system that exists just to take people to work and take them back home. Black Americans, it never fails. If it's something bad, we are always overrepresented. Black Americans are the most likely of all demographics in the U.S., even more likely than illegal immigrants, to be without a vehicle. The thing is, in a rural area, and most of America is urban, so sometimes people don't understand the urgency of transportation in rural areas. When you don't have a car in a rural area, it literally can mean the quality of your life takes a drastic drop. You can't get to a grocery store. You can't get to a doctor. You can't go to a museum, a movie, take your kids to an event at school. You can't get to a parent-teacher conference. You can't get to work. Okay, you can't get to pay a bill if it's something you need to do in person. So my better transportation plan, again, I'm not a big government fan, but I do feel that government programs do have their place. This country spends a hell of a lot of money on everything else, trillions of dollars, everything else. They give trillions to the Pentagon. The Pentagon can't even pass an audit. So we can invest some money in our people. So my plan is to use a car buyer's assistance program and a car maintenance program, because sometimes people can afford the car, but there's time the maintenance and the insurance they can't afford. I want to make it to where we use government programs to help people no longer need the government program. So if I'm giving you a Section 8 house, for example, okay, you should not be in there for generations. Eventually, the goal should be that I give you enough support that you can get out of it. What happens now with government programs, they help you, and then 18 years later, you're still being helped, and your life is no better off than what it was before. Government programs should be used to give people the lift up and support they need. Right now, people say that's what it does. No, it doesn't. So my car buyers program, the way I'm envisioning it, will help with making a down payment. It may cover the whole thing, and it will help with covering at least the first 3 months of car notes. I will partner with small businesses in my area. I'm in a rural area. Lots of guys and women are car mechanics. You know, the shade tree mechanic in the small town. We have plenty of those here. I want to, right, that's a real thing. I want to.
No, I know. I've seen that before. Because again, in Indiana, my family's lives in the rural parts of Indiana, so I know what you're talking about. I'm not laughing at it.
Like my brother, he doesn't do this for a living, but he knows how to do a car. He came out my mother's womb like that. I want to partner with them so that they will, you know how when you have medical insurance, you have a network of doctors you can go to. I want to have a network of car garages where you can go to get help. And the same way you have a SNAP benefit, you will have a car maintenance benefit. The difference is this car will be used to help get you to places that can help empower you. I also want to address the issues of needing to commute. I do believe in public transportation, but the problem is the reason rural areas don't have public transportation is it's too expensive and it won't make a profit. If you are serving an area that only has 200 people, you have to put gas in a bus, and putting gas in a bus one-way trip is going to cost twice that much. So I want to incentivize expanding to rural areas because I don't want us to be so car reliant, but I don't want to take people's car. And people need a car. It is a quality of life issue. So that's my plan. But of course, I will work with my colleagues in Congress and my people in my district to come up with something that will work, that will help us help us.
All right. And I think that's a great note to end it on. First of all, I want to thank you so much for being on our show. So for our viewing audience, if they want to learn more about your campaign, find you on social media, where can they go?
Marcel for Congress.com. So, I mean, MarcelForCongress, because people spell Marcel so many different ways. My platform is there. I am very active on Twitter. I'm going to let people know you can't easily categorize me. I'm not far right. I'm not far left. I am my own independent thinker. You may like some things I have. You may hate some things I have. Let's stop being afraid to disagree. On Twitter, I am Marcel, the digit number 4, Congress. And you can reach me at my email, repairblackamerica@marcelforcongress.com. And I do check text messages, 843-940-8983. I'm most active on Twitter, though. And thank you for having me.
All right. Thank you so much. We will be continuing on with the rest of our show. Again, Marcel, thank you so much for your time. We are going to be starting with the main show. See you all there. Bye-bye.
I guess this isn't such an awful place. Is that what you want me to say? You prove it's possible to sleep for days and to still think you're right here awake. The cost of living isn't much to make, but God, it's so hard to save. And when they told you everything was safe, were you safe? Were you safe? Were you safe? Were you safe? I guess this isn't such an awful place. Is that what you want me to say? You prove it's possible to sleep for days and to still think you're right here awake. The cost of living isn't much to make, but God, it's so hard to say. And when they told you everything was safe, were you safe? Were you safe? Were you safe? Were you safe?
Fresh off the masses, the brand new cancerous growth, who has come here to vie for your vote. Come here to cry at the camps and to mourn at the shore for the bodies that float by the wreck of an immigrant boat. Then it's back to their luxury home, couple security booths and a moat. Couple cigars, little escargot, little booze and a soak. Just breathe in the steam and the smoke. Pink salt, lavender, candles are low. Shit, when you do what you do, gotta lighten the load. And he got a life of his own that's a sight to behold. And it's a lot to control, to decipher the code, or to siphon the soul. The cost of a good night's sleep for the working elite is a bargain, no matter the toll. Worth any wager, and that comes straight from the mouth of the means to the goal that will swallow us whole. Ripe for the picking if you don't mind mold, and you know I don't. Maybe we're pleasantly prone, maybe we're taking a licking, compliantly ticking and ticking and ticking, but never explode. No, I don't deliver the prettiest image, but damn if it isn't an accurate vision of natural fission, of rage at the system and abject heartbreak, patiently waiting for any who will listen. That little blue bird who was watching your words is a federal carrier pigeon, a Langley first. It's a patient observer who hears what it wants and is trained for the worst. Oh, you got nothing to hide. They'll be the ones to decide that after they root through your purse, after they read all your text, after they raid your apartment, confiscate all of its contents, then conjure up evidence out of the air on a wing and a prayer and malicious intelligence nonsense. Any presumption of innocence long since gone, right along with your comforts and constants. Historically, first they will come for the communists. So why in the fuck would I say I'm a communist? Well, it might be I love my community more than the monsters of opulence who are holding us hostage, who are vomiting promises. Might be I'm all done seeing our pensions and benefits harvested. Might be I'm all done watching the populace being disarmed in the guise of an armistice. Watching a woman collapse on the floor who will rise no more. She's wheeled out the door and you're next in line for the pharmacist. If you can get me to vote, it's a hard no confidence. But part of the charm of deception is politics wearing the mask of incompetence. It's all in the art of austerity, darling. It's all in the slide of the providence. Until home is as wide as your cubicle height and is only as deep as your coffin is. Maybe I'm miles away from impatience, aching to break off the head of the snake where the capital lust, reptile brain, and the margin of profit is. Like off with his. Like off with his.
I guess this isn't such an awful place. Is that what you want me to say? You prove it's possible to sleep for days and to still think you're right here awake. The cost of living isn't much to make, but God, it's so hard to save. And when they told you everything was safe, were you safe?